Hey, so tonight, we're diving into something pretty unsettling. What it would be like if you suddenly woke up inside a Victorian home. You might picture elegance and fancy decor, but behind the velvet curtains and polished wood, those houses were full of hidden dangers no one understood at the time. And hey, if these stories help you relax or drift off, I'd love a like or subscribe. Also, drop a comment with your location and the time where you are. It never stops amazing me that people are falling asleep to the same story from New York to New Delhi. All right, find that cozy spot, take a slow breath, and let yourself sink into the present moment. Because we're heading back to 1870s England, and you're about to learn why you'd be thankful for modern plumbing, safe walls, and a decent mattress.
You'll just open your eyes. The first thing you notice is not silence, but the creak of wood beneath you. The bed feels too firm, its mattress stuffed with horsehair and covered in rough linen sheets. A faint chill lingers in the room, even though a small coal fire glows weakly in the grate across from you. The air smells different, heavy with soot, faintly metallic, as if every breath carries the echo of smoke from 1,000 chimneys outside. You blink, and your eyes adjust to the pale morning light slipping through a tall window. But there is no glass the way you expect. Instead, thick curtains are drawn aside, and the window panes are mottled with imperfections, the glass slightly warped, bending the light in strange waves. Dust motes drift lazily in the golden stream of dawn. You are lying in a bedroom inside a Victorian townhouse. Grand to the eyes of its time, but to you it feels suffocating. The walls are covered with dark floral wallpaper, the kind that seems alive, patterns of curling leaves and climbing roses that twist into shadowy shapes as you stare at them too long. Above you hangs a chandelier, its crystals dulled by soot and age, still holding the faint smell of the oil lamps that burned here the night before. You sit up slowly and the bed creaks. The air is damp, clinging to your skin, and you realise this is not the clean dryness you know. It is a heaviness, a kind of damp that seeps into bones, a kind that Victorians lived with daily, a reminder of coal fires, stone walls, and the endless fog outside. Your stomach growls. But there is no kitchen waiting with coffee and bread at your command. To eat you would have to wait for servants, if the house is wealthy enough to have them. You might hear them already. Faint footsteps on wooden stairs, the clinking of pots in a scullery below. For in a Victorian house, food does not arrive quickly. It begins with kindling a fire, with smoke filling the kitchen, with hours of labour before a simple breakfast of porridge, bread or boiled eggs can be served. You shiver. The fire in the grate has burned low, leaving the room cool. You reach for clothes, but the wardrobe offers stiff, heavy fabrics, layers upon layers, chemises, corsets, bodices, skirts, waistcoats, trousers cut high and narrow. Nothing slips on easily. Every garment seems designed to shape, to bind, to hold the body in a strict form. Comfort is not the goal here. Presentation is. In this house, clothing is a prison disguised as fashion, and as you dress, you begin to notice. Survival here is not just about food or warmth. It is about rules. Victorian houses were machines of order. Every room had a purpose. Every hour of the day was dictated by routine. Morning tea in the drawing room. Letters written by hand with ink and quill. Visits carefully arranged, never unannounced. Even the furniture enforces discipline. Hard-backed chairs, stiff settees, carved wood and iron. Nothing is built for rest. Everything is built for control. If you step to the window, you might hear it. The rattle of carriage wheels on cobblestones below, the sharp clop of horses' hooves, the occasional cry of a newspaper boy calling the headlines. Outside, a thick smog swirls through the streets, a yellowish fog smelling of coal smoke and factory chimneys. The Victorian city is alive, but it is also poisoned. To walk outside is to choke on soot, to have your clothes stained before noon, to see the sky hidden behind a curtain of industrial breath. And yet you are still not free inside the house. The floor creaks again, and perhaps you hear the rustle of skirts outside your room. A maid, rising before dawn, already exhausted, already carrying coal scuttles to feed the endless fires of the house. She cannot meet your eyes. She must not speak freely. For in a Victorian household the servants are shadows, working, always working, but never truly seen. The house itself enforces this division. Narrow servant staircases twist behind the walls, cramped and steep, designed so the workers could pass unseen by the family. Bells connected by wires hang in the servants' quarters, each one tied to a room upstairs. If a master pulls the cord, a bell jingles, and the servant must appear, instantly, silently, obediently. You're not used to such a system. You pull a switch for light, you press a button for heat. But here, everything depends on the labour of others, on the grind of human bodies bent to routine. And even if you were the master of this house, you would not survive easily. The very air you breathe carries threats. Tuberculosis lurks in damp halls. Typhoid and cholera slip through pipes and drains. Doctors still bleed patients or dose them with mercury. A simple fever could be the end. And while you shiver at the thought, the Victorians lived with this reality daily, cloaked in a silence of endurance. The hours stretch before you. Breakfast will not come for some time. Your clothes weigh heavy on your shoulders. The room smells of damp wallpaper, coal smoke and oil. Outside, the city rattles on, loud and filthy, yet separated from you by these thick, suffocating walls. You are trapped in the order of the Victorian house. Every moment is heavy with rules. Every breath is thick with smoke, and you are only at the beginning of the day. The clock chimes softly somewhere in the house. You count the notes. 7 rings. 7 in the morning. The day has officially begun. But this is not the kind of morning you know. There is no rushing to hot showers, no coffee machine bubbling in the kitchen. Instead, life in this Victorian house stirs slowly, almost painfully, as if every step of waking takes more effort than it should. Your room is still cold. You notice the faint glow from the hearth has dimmed to a bed of grey ashes. If you were a true Victorian, you would not have risen to find the fire already burning. A maid would have crept into your room at dawn, quiet, almost invisibly, to light it, bringing coal in a scuttle carried from the basement. She would kneel, hands already blackened, carefully setting kindling beneath the coals. If she succeeded, the fire would breathe life again. If she failed, the room would remain icy until her next attempt. For her, this is not one room. She must do this in 6 rooms or more before the masters rise from their beds. You imagine her slipping out before you awoke, her shoes silent on the wooden floor, her movements hidden in shadows. In the strict rhythm of this house, servants exist like ghosts, present everywhere, acknowledged nowhere. You begin to dress. This is no small task. If you are a man, Your trousers must be buttoned, your waistcoat fastened snugly, your collar stiffened with starch, your jacket brushed of any speck of lint. Boots are to be polished, a task you cannot do yourself. A valet, if you are wealthy enough, would see to such details. If you're a woman, the ordeal is far worse. Layer upon layer of garments must be pulled over your body. A chemise, corset stays tightened until you cannot breathe deeply, petticoats that weigh heavy on your hips, stockings fastened with garters, a gown of wool, silk or cotton, and finally gloves, hat, and perhaps even a bustle to make your figure more respectable. This clothing is armour. It is meant to display status, respectability, and adherence to strict codes of appearance. Comfort is sacrificed entirely. Imagine trying to move through a narrow staircase with your waist bound tightly, your skirts brushing the walls, your shoes pinching at your toes. Already you begin to feel how survival in this house is less about health or hunger and more about endurance. Breakfast awaits, but unlike in your world, it does not come quickly. It is prepared downstairs in the scullery and kitchen by exhausted hands. Fires must be coaxed to life, kettles filled with water hauled from a pump or a tap, eggs boiled, porridge stirred in heavy pans. Everything takes time, and while you wait you descend the stairs. The stairs are narrow, steep, and creak beneath your weight. The banister is polished, gleaming faintly in the morning light that filters through high windows. The wallpaper is darker here, patterned with solemn colours, deep burgundy, dark green, muted gold. Gas lamps are mounted on the walls, though many households cannot afford to keep them burning for long. Their light is dim, flickering, casting the hall in wavering shadows. At last you step into the dining room. The furniture here is heavy, mahogany polished to a deep shine, carved legs thick and ornate. A long table stretches across the room, already set with china plates and silverware that catch what little light spills through the curtains. And on the sideboard waits the first meal of the day. For the wealthy, breakfast is generous. Thick slices of bread, butter, jam, eggs, kippers, perhaps even bacon or sausage. Porridge is common, steaming in a pot, sweetened with treacle or honey. Tea is served in china cups, dark and strong, poured from a polished silver pot. Milk may be added, though milk itself is a gamble, often unpasteurized, carrying disease. Coffee exists but is rarer, less trusted than tea. For the poor, breakfast is simpler, if it exists at all. A crust of bread, a weak broth, a scrap of cheese, perhaps only water. But even here in a grand house, you would not feel at ease. Meals are not casual, they are rituals. Manners are strict. Sit straight, do not speak too loudly, never reach across the table. Napkins must be folded neatly, spoons must be held just so. Conversation is polite, formal, and often suffocating. Every gesture, every bite is observed. And you notice too how silence divides the house. Children may not eat here, not yet. They have their own nursery, their own routines, their own separate meals under the supervision of a governess. Their voices are not to disturb the adults. The servants do not eat here either. They have their own table in the kitchen, their food plainer, their portions smaller. This is the Victorian world. Every person in their place, every boundary enforced. As you sip tea, careful not to spill a drop on the white linen cloth, you realise how alien this rhythm is. It is not only about survival of the body, it is survival of patience, of conformity, of endless performance. When breakfast ends, the day truly begins. The men may leave the house, hats pulled low, walking canes tapping against the cobblestones, heading toward offices or clubs. The women remain, confined to drawing rooms and parlours, their tasks revolving around letters, embroidery, household management or polite visits. For the poor, there is no such division. Men, women and children alike must work, in factories, in laundries, in shops, in the endless grime of the city. But inside this house, you're already weary. Every action is slow, bound by layers of clothing, rules of etiquette, and the sheer weight of the house itself. The rooms loom around you, filled with heavy drapes, ticking clocks, portraits staring with solemn eyes. Dust gathers in corners despite constant cleaning. Coal smoke seeps into every curtain, every carpet, every breath, and you begin to understand this house is not your friend. It is a cage, a beautiful cage, decorated with carved wood and velvet, but still a cage. To live here is to move through corridors of ritual and expectation. To survive here is not about resisting hunger or cold, it is about resisting the crushing rules of Victorian respectability. You glance at the clock again. It is only 9 in the morning. The day has barely begun. The clock strikes noon. Its sound carries through the hallways like a command, reminding everyone within the house that time itself is not their own. In a Victorian household, the clock rules all. Each ring is a summons, each note a marker of duty. The house feels both alive and hushed. Servants move like shadows, cleaning, polishing, carrying trays, but their presence is muted, their voices silenced by years of discipline. Above them, the master of the house may be out, tending to business, law, banking, or political duties, and so the house falls into the domain of women, children, and the endless rituals of domestic life. If you wander through these rooms, you'll notice how each space tells its own story. The drawing room, bright by Victorian standards, though its heavy curtains keep out much of the natural light, is a place of control disguised as leisure. The chairs are stiff-backed, upholstered in dark fabrics. Every cushion and vase is placed with care, more for appearance than for use. You hesitate to sit too comfortably, as if the furniture itself is scolding you for daring to relax. This is where women spend much of their time. They write letters, by hand, with ink that stains the fingers, on thick paper that smells faintly of starch. Every letter must follow rules of etiquette, who to address, how to sign, what topics are acceptable. Even writing is bound in chains. Others may occupy themselves with embroidery or needlework, sewing flowers into fabric, tiny stitches building patterns that may take weeks to finish. From afar this might look like quiet leisure, but to you it feels like endless repetition. Hands moving without pause, eyes straining in dim light, the hours slipping away with little to show but a cushion cover or a handkerchief. If children are present, they're kept separate still. A governess watches them in the nursery, teaching lessons in reading, arithmetic, and the basics of history. But the lessons are rigid. Creativity is not encouraged. Silence is preferred. Laughter too loud may be scolded. Questions too bold, ignored. Even play is restricted. Toys limited to dolls, wooden blocks, or tin soldiers. You, however, are restless. Used to freedom, to casual speech, to movement. You find the air heavy. Every room seems to close around you with its wallpaper, its ticking clocks, its oppressive silence. You glance toward the window. Outside, the street teems with life. Hansom cabs rattling past, chimney smoke drifting, children barefoot in the gutters. But from inside this house, it feels unreachable, almost forbidden. The midday meal is simple compared to dinner. A cold spread may be laid out. Bread, cheese, cold meats, perhaps pies or pickles. Tea may be poured once more, its bitter steam rising from delicate china cups. Again, the rules of eating apply. Napkins folded, voices quiet, every mouthful measured. For women, the meal is often restrained. Too much food is unladylike, too much enjoyment vulgar. After eating, the long stretch of the afternoon begins, and here lies the true test of survival in a Victorian house: boredom. In your world, boredom is fleeting. You have screens, books of endless variety, music at the press of a button. Here, entertainment is slow and narrow. Perhaps a piano sits in the corner of the drawing room. A young woman may sit, her fingers carefully striking the keys, filling the air with the gentle notes of a waltz or hymn. But even this music is measured, chosen for propriety, not joy. A song too passionate might be frowned upon. Visits are another possibility. A carriage may arrive at the door, wheels rattling, a servant rushing to open it. A neighbour, a cousin, or an acquaintance steps into the parlour. Polite greetings are exchanged, tea is served again. The talk is gentle, restrained, often circling endlessly around weather, health, or recent events. You long for laughter, for arguments, for the free flow of conversation. But in this world, words are carefully chosen, like steps in a dance where one misstep could cause scandal. Meanwhile, the servants work harder than anyone. In the kitchen, the scullery maid scrubs pots blackened by coal smoke. In the laundry, linens are boiled, wrung, hung to dry, the air thick with steam and the sting of soap. Floors must be polished, fires kept burning, lamps cleaned and filled with oil. You do not see most of this labour. The Victorian household is designed so you will not. But without it, the grand rooms upstairs would collapse into filth and darkness within days. The house itself demands this effort. Coal dust creeps in through every crack. Gas lamps leave soot stains. Curtains, carpets, and upholstery gather grime in the damp air. To live here is to fight constantly against decay, and yet the battle is never won. You begin to realise how exhausting this place is, not only for the servants but for you too. Every action, dressing, writing, speaking, eating, is performed under rules. Every room whispers of duty. Even your body is trapped, wrapped in clothes that restrict and bind. The hours stretch endlessly, marked only by the chime of the clock. Sometimes, when the weather's kind, a lady of the house may take a walk. You might join her. The streets are not friendly, filled with smoke, mud, and the cries of vendors. But in a nearby park, order reigns again. Paths are lined with hedges, benches placed neatly beneath trees, flower beds carefully arranged. To walk here is not to breathe freely, but to display oneself, to be seen, to fulfill yet another social duty. As the afternoon wanes, you return once more to the heavy house. The air feels thicker, darker now. Shadows lengthen in the hallways and gas lamps must be lit. Another meal approaches, one far grander, one that will test you more than all the others. And as you climb the stairs to change into formal clothes, heavier, more elaborate, more suffocating, you wonder, how can anyone survive this rhythm, day after day, year after year, without breaking? The clock chimes again. 6 notes, 6 in the evening. The most important ritual of the Victorian house is about to begin. The air in the house changes as evening approaches. Shadows gather in the corners, and the last weak glow of daylight is swallowed by the heavy curtains drawn across tall windows. A faint hiss fills the hallways as servants move from room to room, lighting the gas lamps. Each flame flickers weakly behind frosted glass globes, casting dim circles of light onto patterned wallpaper and polished floors. The smell of gas hangs faintly in the air, mixed with the ever-present coal smoke. The house feels quieter now, but it is not restful. It is tense, as though preparing for a performance. For in the Victorian world, dinner is not just a meal. It is the heart of the day, the stage upon which wealth, manners and respectability are displayed. You are expected to change clothes before the evening meal. This is not a suggestion, but a rule, enforced by the unspoken laws of society. If you are a man, you put on formal evening attire, a black tailcoat, waistcoat, stiff white shirt, trousers pressed perfectly, polished shoes, gloves, and of course, a cravat or bow tie tied just so. If you are a woman, the transformation is far more demanding. The corset is tightened further until each breath is shallow. Layers of skirts are added, heavier and grander than those worn during the day. Fabrics shimmer with silk, satin, or velvet, sometimes adorned with lace or beading. Gloves, jewellery, and elaborate hairstyles complete the look. Comfort is not considered. Beauty and discipline are everything. By the time you're dressed, you already feel weary. But the evening has only just begun. The dining room is prepared with great care. A long mahogany table stretches beneath a chandelier whose glass crystals gleam faintly in the gaslight. The table is covered with a spotless white cloth. Rows of silverware glint beside porcelain plates, each carefully arranged in a pattern only the Victorians seem to understand. There are knives for fish, knives for meat, forks for salad, forks for dessert, spoons of different sizes for different soups. Even the glasses are ordered by function: water, sherry, wine, port. To sit here is to be confronted by a battlefield of etiquette, where one mistake, lifting the wrong fork, drinking from the wrong glass, could bring whispers and disapproval. Servants glide silently around the room. Footmen in livery, hair neatly oiled, stand like statues along the walls. They will serve each dish, refill each glass, clear each plate without ever drawing attention to themselves. Their discipline is as strict as that of the guests at the table. A misstep for them could mean dismissal. At last the meal begins. The first course is set before you. Perhaps a delicate soup, steaming faintly in its porcelain bowl. You must eat slowly, carefully, with the proper spoon, never slurping, never rushing. The conversation around the table begins at once. Low voices, polite tones, carefully chosen words, no subject too coarse, no laughter too loud. This is not a place for honesty, it is a place for performance. The courses continue. Fish is served, followed by meat, perhaps roast beef with potatoes and vegetables. Then comes game, pheasant, duck, or rabbit, roasted until the smell of it fills the room. Each dish is rich, heavy, flavoured with sauces and gravies, presented with pride. But to you the richness is overwhelming. Your body, unaccustomed to so many layers of food in a single sitting, rebels quietly. Yet you must continue, for to refuse food is to insult the host. Wine flows freely. Different glasses are filled with different drinks, each paired with a dish. Sherry with soup, claret with meat, port with dessert. Your head begins to feel light, your stomach heavy, but the dinner is far from finished. Between courses, conversation swirls. Guests speak of politics, literature, travel, and society. Each remark is carefully measured, designed to show wit without offence, knowledge without arrogance. You listen, struggling to keep up. You long to speak freely. to share a thought without rehearsing it in your mind, but here every word is weighed like currency. And as the courses continue, pudding, custard, sweet fruits, nuts, the air in the room grows warmer. The chandelier throws its light over flushed faces and polished silver. Servants move quickly, quietly, keeping the rhythm of the evening alive. To you, it feels endless. A simple meal stretched into hours, every bite slowed by ritual, every gesture watched. At last, the table is cleared. The men retire to the smoking room, a dark chamber lined with bookshelves and heavy armchairs, where cigars are lit and brandy poured. The air soon thickens with smoke, the talk shifting to business and politics, no longer moderated for the ears of women. The women withdraw to the drawing room where tea may be served, conversation lighter, focused on society, children and culture. This division is strict, unbreakable. To cross it would be unthinkable. You feel the weight of the evening pressing down. The clothes that once seemed grand now suffocate. The corset cuts into your ribs. The collar scratches at your neck. Even your shoes pinch your toes, polished though they may be. Your body aches for release, but you must remain upright, composed, dignified. The hours stretch further still. Cards may be played, a piano may be opened, a song performed. But the entertainment is quiet, restrained. There is no freedom in it, only duty. Guests smile politely, applaud softly, sip their drinks, and wait for the clock to release them. And all the while, the servants remain at work. Dishes must be scrubbed, glasses polished, linens washed. Fires must be fed, lamps extinguished one by one. Long after the masters retire, the labour continues in silence, unseen, unacknowledged. By the time you climb the stairs once more, it is late. The corridors are dim, the air colder now as the fires die down. You're weary, heavy with food, your body sore from clothes that never allow rest. You long to collapse into bed, to shed the armour of Victorian fashion, to breathe freely at last. But even sleep here is not simple. The bed is firm, the sheets scratchy, the air damp and chilled. Outside the window the city groans, horses clattering, factory whistles blowing, the endless cough of chimneys spitting smoke into the night. You pull the covers tight around you, but the house does not sleep. It creaks, groans, whispers in the dark. Somewhere below, a servant still scrubs at dishes. Somewhere in the nursery, a child stirs. Somewhere outside, the city rages on, and you realise you are trapped in this house, caught in its rituals, its silence, its rules. Survival here is not about enduring hunger or cold. It is about enduring the endless performance of life itself, every hour bound by duty, every breath weighed down by smoke and rules. And tomorrow it all begins again. The hour grows late. The gas lamps are dimmed, one by one, until the hallways fall into near darkness. Only the faintest glow remains, a trembling halo behind frosted glass, casting more shadow than light. The house, which seemed so grand in the daylight, now feels vast, hollow, and strange. You lie in the narrow bed, the mattress stuffed with horsehair, hard against your back. The sheets are stiff, rough with starch, and the blankets heavy with dust. The air is cold, damp, pressing against your skin like a silent hand. The coal fire in the grate has died down, leaving only a faint orange glow, its warmth too weak to reach you. Outside, the city does not sleep. Through the thick curtains you can hear the restless sounds of Victorian London. Hooves clatter along the cobblestones. Iron-rimmed wheels groan and rattle. A drunkard shouts in the distance. A woman's voice answers sharp and broken. Then silence falls again. somewhere further away, the deep blast of a factory whistle cuts through the night, reminding you that these cities' engines never stop, not even in the dark. But it's not only the city you hear, the house itself whispers. Old beams creak, pipes groan. The wind scratches faintly against the window panes, and beneath it all, you sense movement. Servants still at work, their soft footsteps echoing down hidden staircases, their muffled voices carrying faintly through thin walls. Even now, long after the masters have retired, the house has not yet surrendered to rest. You try to close your eyes, but sleep in a Victorian house is not simple. First, the smell presses down on you. Coal smoke, damp wood, the faint sourness of chamber pots kept under beds, the lingering perfume of dinner, all mixed together into a heavy fog that seems to sink into your lungs. The gaslight leaves behind its own sharp tang, as if the very air is laced with something unclean. And then there is the darkness itself. Without electricity, the night here is absolute. Beyond the faint glow of the cooling embers, the room is swallowed in blackness. Every corner feels deeper, every shadow heavier, as though something might be hiding just out of sight. The Victorians often spoke of ghosts, of spirits lingering in their great houses, but here, in the silence, you understand why. The house feels haunted, not only by the dead, but by the weight of lives lived within its walls, by secrets whispered in rooms that no longer exist, by sorrows trapped in bricks and wood. The cold creeps in slowly, winding around your feet, your legs, your chest. You pull the blankets tighter, but it seeps through, relentless. This was the age before central heating, when warmth was local, fleeting, unreliable. If the fire in your grate dies, you must endure the chill until morning. Frost may form on the inside of a windows, water in a basin may freeze solid. To live in such a house is to always wrestle with the cold. And then there are the dangers you cannot see. The gas lamps that seem so modern during the evening can betray you at night. Leaks are common, the faint hiss of escaping gas almost impossible to detect. Many families never woke, smothered silently in their beds by the very invention that was meant to light their homes. Every breath you take feels uncertain, as if the air itself might turn against you. Even if the air spares you, the house itself may not. Victorian homes were lit by candles before gas, and fire was a constant fear. Chimneys clogged with soot could spark. Curtains, dresses, tablecloths, all so heavy with fabric, could ignite with a single flame. Families often slept uneasily, knowing that one accident could turn a house into an inferno. You turn on your side, listening harder. Somewhere in the walls, faint scratching begins. Rats. They're everywhere in the city, slipping through cracks, gnawing on wood, scurrying through the kitchens at night. Some carry disease, some simply feast on crumbs left behind. Either way, they're never far. The Victorians fought them with traps and cats, but still they return, scratching, always scratching. And then there is illness itself. To live in a Victorian house is to live with constant risk. The damp walls breed mould. The coal smoke fills lungs with soot. Windows are kept shut tight against draughts, sealing in the very air that makes people sick. Consumption, pneumonia, influenza. These shadows linger in every breath. Children cough in the night. Parents pray silently in their beds, and doctors, when called, often bring more harm than help, with bleeding, mercury or opiates prescribed as cures. As you shift again you hear it, the faint wail of a child. Somewhere in the nursery above a baby stirs. The cry is soft at first, then grows sharper, slicing through the silence. A nursemaid will rise, her footsteps light, carrying the child away from sleep and into soothing arms. But you know the truth. Victorian nurseries are not safe havens. Many children do not survive these walls. Fever, infection and hunger take them swiftly. To be born here is to gamble with fate. The night stretches on, time feels slower, stretched thin by the darkness. You think of the servants below, their beds narrow and crowded, their sleep short. You think of the sick rooms scattered across the city, the coughing and moaning of neighbours behind thin walls. You think of the endless smoke rising from chimneys, thickening the night air until it clings to your very skin. Every sound becomes sharper, the tick of a clock, the distant roll of carriage wheels, the sigh of wind pressing against the eaves, and always, always the sense that you're being watched, not by people, but by the house itself. Its walls are thick but not silent. Its rooms are grand but not kind. You feel as though the house knows you, weighs you, wonders if you'll endure another night within it. And when sleep finally comes, it is shallow, restless. Dreams bleed into reality, shadows shifting at the edge of sight. You wake often, your throat dry, your body aching, the cold gnawing at your bones. The hours crawl, one after another, until at last a faint grey light begins to seep around the curtains. The night has passed, but survival in a Victorian house is not measured in days or meals. It is measured in nights like this one, in the struggle to breathe, to rest, to endure the endless dark while the house groans and the city coughs beyond the walls. And tomorrow, when the morning bells ring and the coal fires roar to life once more, you will rise again into the same world, the same weight of rules and rituals, the same shadows waiting for you when the light fades. For the Victorian house never truly sleeps. It only shifts from one form of demand to another. Morning comes, but not for you. The first sound is not your own stirring, but the muted shuffle of feet far below. The servants rise long before the masters, their hours measured not by comfort but by duty. In truth, the Victorian house does not awaken when its owners do. It awakens with its servants. The basement corridors are dim, lit by oil lamps that leave streaks of soot on the walls. The ceilings are low, the walls damp, the air thick with the smell of coal dust and wet stone. It feels like a different world entirely, a world beneath the house, where the elegance above is built on sweat and exhaustion. Here, the day begins in silence. A scullery maid, little more than a child, stumbles to her feet, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Her bed is narrow, her blanket thin. She will never see the grand canopy beds upstairs, never feel the softness of silk sheets. Instead, she washes her face with cold water from a basin, ties her apron tight, and descends into the scullery where her day begins with ash and grime. Her first duty, cleaning out the fireplaces. One by one, the fireplaces across the house must be scraped, cleared of soot and ashes, and laid anew with kindling for the day ahead. This is work of silence and shadows, for it must all be finished before the family wakes. She hauls out the ashes in heavy buckets, her small arms trembling, leaving faint trails of soot on her cheeks. Her fingers grow raw from scrubbing grates. No one thanks her. Few even notice her. In the kitchen, the cook already waits. She is older, sterner, her face lined by years of smoke and heat. She barks instructions as the scullery maid stumbles in. Water must be boiled, bread must be kneaded, pots must be scrubbed until they shine. The kitchen is the true heart of the house, but its heart beats hard and loud. The clang of iron pans, the roar of the fire, the rush of boiling water, all of it begins before dawn. The footmen rise next, straightening their livery, polishing boots until they gleam. They carry trays, polish silver, prepare the dining room for the grand breakfast to come. Every fork must be in its place, every plate gleaming white, every napkin folded with precision. A single error might bring the wrath of the mistress, who notices everything and forgives nothing. Upstairs the house is still sleeping, but here in the servants' quarters time is already slipping away. There is no pause, no leisure. These servants live by the clock, or rather by the bells that summon them. A sharp pull of a cord in any room above rings a bell on the servants' wall. Each bell is labelled dining room, drawing room, master's study, nursery, guest chamber. When the bell rings, someone must answer immediately, no matter how exhausted, no matter what task they are in the middle of. The butler, tall and solemn, moves among them with quiet authority. He is the keeper of order, the invisible shadow of the master. His footsteps are measured, his face expressionless. He knows the secrets of the house, who drank too much at dinner, who quarrelled behind closed doors, who spends too freely or too carelessly. Yet he says nothing. His loyalty is not to gossip, but to survival. For him, too, a mistake could mean dismissal, and dismissal means ruin. And then there is the lady's maid, slipping silently through the dim halls. Her work begins with preparing her mistress for the day, brushing out long hair until it shines, tightening corsets until the breath is nearly pressed away, laying out dresses chosen with care. She's closer than anyone to her mistress, and yet she is never equal. She lives in the shadow of beauty and wealth, but owns neither herself. It is easy to forget that all of this work happens while you, as a guest or master, might still be in bed. Breakfast will appear as if by magic, porridge steaming, eggs boiled just so, tea poured into fine china. Fires will be crackling warmly in every room you enter. Curtains will be tied back neatly, there's dust brushed away. But none of it is magic. It is labour, endless, invisible, exhausting labour. And life for the servants is not only hard but short. The scullery maid, exposed daily to ash and soap, may find her hands cracked and bleeding before she's grown. The cook, bent over flames and smoke, coughs into her apron at night, her lungs lined with soot. The footman, so straight and proper, may suffer quietly from hunger, for their meals are scraps compared to the banquets they serve, and yet the hierarchy among servants is as strict as the one upstairs. The scullery maid bows to the kitchen maid, who bows to the cook, who bows to the butler, who bows to the master. The house in truth is two houses, one above, shining with chandeliers and polished wood, filled with conversation and leisure. One below, dim and narrow, echoing with labour and silence. The masters rarely see the servants' world, and the servants rarely step into theirs. It is a separation built not only by walls and staircases, but by centuries of expectation. And yet, despite the cruelty, despite the exhaustion, there is a strange rhythm here, even a kind of life. Servants whisper jokes in the kitchen when the mistress is away. They share stolen bites of cake when no one is looking. They gather in the evenings, exhausted but together, telling stories in hushed tones before collapsing into bed. Their world is harsh, but it is also theirs, carved from scraps of time between the demands of bells. But for you, stepping into this world even for a moment, survival would be impossible. The hours are too long, the labour too harsh, the discipline too strict. You are not trained to wake before dawn, to scrub floors until your knees ache, to carry trays without a tremor, to bow with just the right angle of deference. Even if you tried, even if you endured the exhaustion, you would not last. You would be dismissed for clumsiness, for hesitation, for failing to vanish quickly enough when your presence was no longer required. And so the house continues, carried on the backs of the unseen, their lives bound to its walls, their names forgotten even as the families above are remembered in history books. The masters may believe the house belongs to them, but it is the servants who keep it alive, who stoke its fires, polish its silver, scrub its stones until they gleam. The bells ring again, another day begins, and in this hidden world there is no escape, no rest, only the endless rhythm of work and silence. The sun creeps slowly through the tall windows, its pale light filtering through lace curtains and heavy drapes. While the servants have already been awake for hours, the family's day is only now beginning. For them, the Victorian house reveals a different face, polished, orderly, waiting as though the world outside does not exist. The master of the house stirs first, though not without ceremony. His bed is large, carved of dark wood, the mattress softer than anything the servants would ever touch. Before he even opens his eyes, his valet is already in the room. The fire has been relit. Warm water has been carried up in jugs for washing. Fresh clothes are laid out carefully, pressed and brushed until they look new. The master stretches, yawns, and allows himself to be dressed as if it were his right, which in this world it is. His clothes are no simple matter. Each layer matters. Starched shirt, waistcoat, cravat, jacket. His shoes must shine like mirrors, his watch must tick with precise authority. In the mirror, he sees not just himself, but his place in society, measured by fabric, polish, and posture. The mistress of the house awakens a little later, but her morning is far more elaborate. Her lady's maid is ready, waiting silently in the corner of the bedroom until the mistress stirs. First comes the washing, often with rose water to disguise the stale heaviness of the house's air. Then the hair, brushed and pinned into shape, sometimes curled with hot irons, sometimes braided into elaborate designs. Then the corset pulled tight until every breath is shallow. The maid pulls the laces, the mistress grips the bedpost, her face tightening as her body is squeezed into the shape demanded by fashion.